CVs. This is a list of do's and don'ts, and I took a look at a couple of the CVs from your cohort, so this is where a lot of this came from, so hopefully it's helpful. As far as a US versus a European style CV, my thought is, and my experience, that the American version is accepted by multinationals and multilateral organizations. The only exception would be, say, for a position at the United Nations or World Bank or other more traditional, conservative organizations. It's okay to have more information. I recommend having a CV that's no more than 2 pages if you have over 10 years of experience, and should be 1 page if you have under 10 years of experience, unless you have information that warrants it. I mean, there are people who have wealth of experience and it's important to present, but in general, I would say, unless you have over 10 years, that a 1-page CV suffices. And because it's just there's not much chance they're going to read on to the second page if they don't see that you're a mid to senior level professional. So from this, I talked about the career profile that should really touch on a couple lines or a couple of bullets that summarizes for the employer who you are and what value you bring or what you're recognized for. You don't need a photo or your full address anymore. Generally, the country or city and state if you're in the U.S. Another important thing to remember is that a brief company description is important if it's not a well-known company that you've been with or organization. And I don't mean that it should be like 1 to 2 lines. But if you can say what the annual revenues are, or the number of employees, or if it's a small firm, you could say top national retailer, but something in parentheses right after the company to tell the person who this is you were working for. It just makes their job easier. So if you think about the CV from that perspective, right? You don't want to leave the hiring manager with any questions. So the best thing you can do, because they're not going to have time, again, like we saw in the beginning, Google those extra pieces. So explain it for them. Who is this company that you work for or organization that you work for? I also see a lot of confusion with education, so along these same lines, I've seen resumes even of a senior executive recently who had 2 universities listed, and then on LinkedIn it said something different, and I had to ask him, where did you actually graduate from? Because it was not clear. It's more important to put the place you graduated from. If you do really want to put a place you transferred from to your current university, the best thing you can do is just list it as part of where you graduated from and the years you attended it, instead of separating it out, because it creates confusion. And GPAs, my feeling, and from talking to a lot of folks, is that it's really not necessary unless you have a GPA of 3.5 or above. And by the time you're, say, 3 to 5 years out of school, just take it off completely. It's just not something people need to see. I mean, unless it's specifically requested. Some management consulting firms, for example, request it, and others might. But I've heard more often than not that recruiters just don't want to see it after a time. So I mentioned not listing duty, but really talking about the specific tasks that you've done in your bullets and what the end goal was. So this doesn't mean you have to say increase sales 10%. You could easily say something like, researched new business development leads and increased sales if you don't have a number, or developed a new filing process, digital filing process that saves staff time. You don't need numbers. If you don't have them, if you do, that's great. If not, it's okay. But you need to show specifically what you did and what the end goal or result or impact was. It's very important. It really helps you stand out because most CVs are still very much duty oriented, and I'll show you in a second the example from a CV where you can see that difference. But that will help you stand out tremendously. And then listing relevant coursework is important, particularly if you don't have a lot of experience yet in the area you desire to go into. And don't discount honors or awards. That should be a separate section. The other thing is, if you have them, of course, also don't discount any volunteer experience or internships that don't fit with what you want to do. You might not want to include details on them, but list your title, the company, and when you worked for them. And they can be grouped separately into a different section of prior experience, but make sure it's there because you never know. Could attract someone's attention. So now, if you wouldn't mind pulling up Marissa Mayer's CV.
Sorry, whose CV?
The CV of Marissa Mayer. Yeah, we had 2 questions about that.
Okay. Got it here.
So my recommendation is, I mean, it's very interesting CV, but automatic tracking systems that most big organizations use are not going to be able to read a CV like this. It's even true of tables, like a lot of people put tables in their CV so that they can have a couple of columns lined up and take space. A lot of ATS systems cannot read those, even in a Word document. I've had trouble, I also have a recruiting company, we've had trouble reading PDFs sometimes. So I recommend to all my clients to use plain old Word. And I know it's not exciting and it's not pretty, but it's going to make sure that your information is in the system. Now, she's got hyperlinks on it. Hyperlinks are okay, and if they have a purpose, I would encourage you to use them. If you've done something, if you've contributed to a publication, if there's an article that's been written about you or a program you led or were closely involved in, it's okay to use those on LinkedIn and your CV. But I would not recommend doing what she's done. And I mean, she can do that because of who she is, right? But the rest of us can't easily do that. The only people I recommend doing really high stylized design like that are for graphic designers, advertising copywriters, and that sort of thing, when it's really an, arts-oriented situation where you have to show your creative capabilities. But you don't want to miss the chance on that. And if you really do want to do that for one reason or another, make sure you have both. Make sure you have, and I've heard this from recruiters time and again, if you have an infographic resume, you also need to have the plain old Word resume as well, because some people are just not going to want to look at it. I've seen some resumes with like a bar on the side with their contact information, and I'm sitting there, in my database trying to read just their name or their address. These are, again, things that impede the hiring managers from contacting you. Like, that's not helping you no matter how pretty it looks, right? So make sure they can see everything clearly and link within your resume. If you can go to the next slide.
Yes.
There's some sample bullets. So let me ask you, what differences do you see between the first set and the second set?
Just give everyone a second to read through.
If they're easy enough to read.
The second, they're not sentences and it's much shorter.
One person said the sentences are, sorry? Can you repeat that?
They're not real sentences and it's much shorter.
They're not real sentences and they're much shorter.
Got it.
They're also,
Anything else?
the second one is in present tense.
The second one is in present tense.
Yep.
And yes.
The second one, it's what I would call like a postman delivers, like I delivered the letters, where the top one is I delivered the letters on time and under budget, so it actually gives a narrative.
Okay, so the first one gives more narrative.
Yeah.
She used a nice little metaphor.
Yes.
Anyone else?
The second one puts more emphasis on actual skills.
The second one puts more emphasis on actual skills.
Okay. Okay, I think that's good. That covers it. So you all hit on very good points. So that's correct. I mean, the first one is in past tense, and the second one is in present tense, right? So it's going to depend on whether you've worked there in the past or in the present. You can choose to keep all of it present for, you know, a current job, or you can do it in the past. And you wouldn't be wrong because, you know, most of the tasks, if you're talking about specific things you've done, would be in the past tense. But you want to be consistent. So if you'll see that how the first set starts with led and developed, those are verbs and they're both past tense. Second example, while it does point to skills, as someone suggested, there's no consistency. You can see you start with data analysis, which is a skill, but it's not a verb. The second one, gathering, is a gerund, right? So it's inconsistent. So I would encourage you to be consistent. You either need to use, and I always recommend using verbs to start just because it creates a cleaner CV. You know, as some people will start a bullet saying responsible for, but I would change that around to give yourself a verb first, because having those action-oriented verbs, again, points to you as a more results-oriented person. I think that the second one also, again, it is those skills, but it's straight duties. You don't see that end goal or the result of the impact of the work like you do in the first example. Does everyone see that? Where you have, you know, that leading an after-school program, what was the end goal of that? Preparing them to join the workforce. Capacity of community leaders, development, what was the end goal? Ensuring future sustainability of the program. And in the second one, it's more about what the person was doing, but not what that information or those tasks, what was the purpose. So like I said before, it doesn't have to be numbers, metrics, it doesn't have to be anything out of the world, you know, but it should be something where you have an end goal as much as possible. It might not be every bullet, but as much as you can, talk about what the purpose of what you were doing was. All right. So let's see. Oh, and okay. Let's move to the next slide, which is actually the last.